Welcome to Insights in Sound, where we talk to the people behind the scenes, behind the technology, and behind the music. People you may not know, but you should. And please check out getitInWriting.net/shows for a full list of our podcast YouTube series.
My guest is Stasium. His credits include, oh, look at that, he does the royal wave too. Check it out. Yes.
Hello, my friends. Hello.
Yes,
Good
indeed.
to see you.
Ed's credits are all over the map. They include the Ramones, Talking Heads, Nona Hendrix, Smithereens. Dear God, I could go on for quite a while here, couldn't I?
Let's not forget Living Color.
Living Color, yes. There's so many of them.
Gladys Knight and the Pips.
You know, that's the one I want to start with right there. Because there's a certain era that you came up in where there was not so much factionalization of music as there came to be over periods of time.
Absolutely not. It was all, WABC. I mean, there was,
Right.
we had our FM stations in New York, WNEW FM.
Mm-hmm.
But, as a kid, I listened to WABC all the time. That was my station. We had the good guys at WMCA. And then, in 68, 69, when the underground music came into vogue.
Right.
The San Francisco scene, the LA scene, the Airplane, the Doors.
But to your point, WABC and all of the, the quote-unquote pop market, things were so mixed, man. You would go from a Motown tune to a Beatles tune to a surf tune.
Sinatra, look at the charts even back then. Mm-hmm. Especially 68, 69, you had the Beatles, Sinatra, the psychedelic stuff. You had, Psychotic Reaction by Count 5. Black is Black by Los Bravos. Brooke Benton, James Brown, all of Motown stuff, Marvin Gaye.
Yeah.
So it was very diversified. It was not classified any way. It was just music, which I grew up with.
Yeah.
And so when Midnight Train was released, and I didn't even know what I was doing when we did that record. I had no clue. I fell into this.
As an engineer?
As an engineer. I mean, I just kind of got into it by osmosis.
Well, back up a little bit. I want to hear about that, because getting into engineering in those days was, it wasn't quite what it is now, obviously. It's a completely different scene, but even getting a gig in a studio back then was not something that you could just wander in and do.
Probably not.
How did that all happen?
Oh, it's a very long story.
Ah.
It'll probably take up a complete hour, but I'll try to.
Can you give me the condensed version?
I'll try to give you a synopsis. Boy, oh boy. Where do I start? It kind of has to circle around a fellow named Mike Bonagura, a childhood friend who I played in bands with, and Tony Bon Jovi, and Tony Camello. Tony Camello was the producer and arranger of Midnight Train in Georgia. I was in garage bands when I was a kid, practicing in garages. Sammy DeSalvo lived across the street from Michael Bonagura.
Right, of course.
Nice Italian neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And
well, it was Jersey,
Yeah, it was Jersey. Yeah. We got friends in Jersey.
Yeah.
I got plenty of them.
Yeah.
And Michael would come over and watch us play, and I taught him how to play his first chords on guitar. Years go on. I got into a couple bands with Michael, a band called London Fog, and a precursor of the Brandywine record that you were talking about. Mm-hmm. And then Michael went off to college. I stayed in that band. I was working for our good friend Ivana Manley's dad was the president of Ampeg. Back then. And I was working at Ampeg. And I got fired for not showing up. I was still in bands. I would come in late. I was living in an apartment. I had a baby, my son Jason. And anyway, so I had to move out of the apartment we were living in. My first wife, Debbie, and Jason were living in my parents' basement. I bought a couple pairs of bicycles. And with no money that I had, I remember it specifically being $120. It was on sale. 2 bicycles, one for my wife, Debbie, and one for myself. And living in my parents' basement in Greenbrook, New Jersey. And
because you didn't have a car? Was that why you bought the bicycles? Or?
I had a car. It was a whim at Bamberger's, which was a subsidiary of Macy's.
Sure, yeah.
And got these bikes and brought them home. Debbie's like, "What do you get those for? We don't have any money to buy bicycles."
And just like that, no
just
doubt.
like that, exactly. And we went for a ride, and I bump into Michael Bonagura, who says, Eddie, a friend of my dad's, Tony Camello, is building a studio in his house, and he said that he has an engineer, this guy Tony Bon Jovi, and we can go there anytime and record, and we should go by there and hang out. And they're, ooh. And I had been in studios up to this time. I was in bands. We did demos, the first one being with Richie Haven's outfit. It was Stormy Forest Records. It was
That's right. He had a record label from it.
A record label, a deal
Yeah.
with MGM or Verve, MGM Verve, maybe they're the same company. And we got a demo deal with them, and they brought us into Media Sound. My first time in media, and this is in 1970, November of 1970. Yeah.
So this was your first exposure to a studio?
No, we were at, like, Dick Charles had demo studios in town. We had been to a couple little demo studios, but this was the first real studio. And Bob Margoloff was the engineer.
Of Stevie Wonder and Tonto fame.
Yes. And Tonto was in the room. I have pictures of Tonto.
Really?
From that session.
Okay.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. And, you know, Bob knows his story well, because every time I see him, I go, hey! And it was right before Stevie Wonder knocked on Bob's door at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning, and with Tonto's Expanding Headband record under his arm, says, "Did you do this? I want to work with you." And he said,
Let me get some coffee first.
Great story.
Yeah.
Great story. You know, that those records that they did together are fantastic.
Oh, absolutely.
So we had done a record, went to Media Sound, Studio A, where I did Ramones stuff and Genya stuff and a bunch of other things. It was a Scully 12-track machine on 1-inch. Very rare.
Yeah, I was going to
12-track.
say.
And the engineer was this guy, Ted Barron, but he was just like smoking weed and wasn't doing anything. And Bob Margoloff started guiding us as a producer, as he is. And, you know, and giving us suggestions. And anyway, I'm drifting here. The story's drifting. Of course it is, Ed. So I buy these bicycles, run into Mike Bonagura. He says, my dad, they're teachers. They taught at a college together. Michael Bonagura's dad, Big Mike, and Tony Camello taught at Alma White University in Zarephath, New Jersey. It was a college that was renowned for just letting hippies come in. They had to wear wigs, but you didn't have to cut your hair, and you would get a draft deferment.
Nice.
Yeah, that back, you know.
Sounds like, what was that fictitious one? Walden College in Doonesbury. Right?
Yeah, kind of the same vibe. So Big Mike was the English professor, and Camilla was Camilla had a PhD in music from Juilliard. Camilla went to Juilliard.
Wow.
He was amazing. Camilla was an amazing cat. He had perfect pitch. He would write, do scores. He would score, do this, just from in his head. He'd play a couple notes and then he'd write, like, bars and the stuff that I can't read.
Yeah.
As Bob Babbitt used to call Tony Camello's bass parts, fly shit. How can I read this, Camello? It looks like fly shit. All over the page. Pretty funny. And so Michael called Camello. We kept trying to get there. This was in the summer. This is going to be 50 years ago. Summer of 72. And kept calling, and finally Tony said, come on down. And we came down, met Tony Bon Jovi. They were partners. Tony's got incredible stories about his going to Motown, writing letters to the engineer and to Berry Gordy about how they're getting the reverb sounds there. Some really crazy stuff. And, I also owe Tony Bon Jovi pretty much my career because of the introduction early on in the introduction to the Ramones. That was Tony. Tony played a big part in my career.
And clearly he also introduced you to studio life in that sense.
In a way, yes. And there's a great little story about that, which I'll get to in a second. But so I meet Tony Bon Jovi, Camilla, and we go to the studio. It's in shambles. There's nothing. There's no floor in the studio. There's no there's nothing. There's wires hanging out of the wall. There's a console on the floor, a Longevin console. It was a 12-track 60 with 12 input 4-bus console, Longevin, that was converted to a 16-track, and Bon Jovi had a friend who made a monitor section. And there was an Ampex MM1000 16-track.
Yeah, that was back in the Wild West days.
But I regress. We also got a record deal with Brandywine before all this, okay? And because our manager, this cat Barry Landers from Plainfield, New Jersey, was the promotion man for the New York Yankees. And A fellow named Nat Tarnapel had a box there and was always there. They became friends. Nat Tarnapel was the son of the founder of Brunswick Records. And Barry Lander says to Nat Tarnapel, "Hey, Nat, I got a band." "Oh, Nat, I'll give him a deal. Have him come to Chicago." And so we drove to Chicago. The bass player couldn't make it. I had to play bass on the record. Albert Miller, Chip Miles, and myself drove in this like 1959 Plymouth with all our gear, drum set. Well, Albert didn't have to bring any gear because they had stuff at the studio. And we met, the engineer was a fabulous fellow, which I had no idea of his reputation at the time. A fellow named Bruce Swedien.
Never heard of him.
Engineered the Brandywine record. You know,
Wow.
Ella Fitzgerald.
Wow.
Count Basie. Sinatra.
Did he have a great mustache back then, too?
Brandywine. Yes, he did. He had a great mustache back then.
I have heard that he's maintained that since he was like 6.
Yeah. And, you know, I was very inquisitive and asked him a lot of questions. And I've always, like, I did demos with two tracks in the studio at the manager's house.
So you already had the bug, basically.
I had the bug since I was 10. Yeah. And I graduated from mono, and I was very supportive. My parents were really supportive. They're both working class, but at Christmas, what do you want for Christmas? A tape recorder. Get a little Japanese tape recorder. What do you get next year? I get a mono electric tape recorder. Another Japanese. And then ended up graduating eventually. Then I got interested in guitars, got an acoustic guitar, a K acoustic, and then the next Christmas I got a K electric.
All right.
When I was 12. And then I saved up enough dough working the summer of 65 to pay for half of a Stratocaster, which I got for my birthday. My parents matched the money. It was $239 with the case.
Ooh.
At Rondo Music.
Nice.
It's, you know, seafoam green. I wanted a sunburst, but the only one left was seafoam green. And that's another big story. You know, when I saw Rocky on the Magical Mystery Tour gatefold, I painted my Strat, and then it got stripped down to wood, and then I repainted it, and it's in a museum now. It's at the Musical Instrument Museum in Phoenix.
Oh, in Phoenix, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to look for that next time I'm there.
Because it's kind of trashed. You know, it was refretted the neck, so it doesn't have any. Anyway, that's another.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, that's another story. We could talk for hours about this shit, but we're trying to get to early Camello. We started talking about Midnight Train to Georgia like 45 minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly.
So Tony Camello, Tony Bon Jovi were a team. They had a 4-track studio in Bound Brook, New Jersey called Venture Sound, which was the name of the studio as well. And Tony was the engineer. He was the cat. And one day, Tony said, "Come on, Eddie, come on. Let's go to New York City. I got a Cool in the Gang session. I want you to come with me. I'll show you how it goes." So now I'm there. Yeah, I want to go. Tony always took the bus in from New Jersey. His family is they were morticians. His entire family, except for Tony, were morticians.
Wow.
Yes. In Raritan, New Jersey.
Talk about being the black sheep of the family,
the Bon Jovi Funeral Home, and it's still there in Raritan, New Jersey.
Wow.
And Tony would park his car. I picked him up actually he was living at home. He was still living at home. Picked him up and drove him to New Brunswick and parked the car and got on a bus and went to Manhattan. And back then, Bob Walters, who ultimately was one of the team that started Power Station, Bob Walters was the manager of Media Sound at that time. And Tony was a staff engineer. There's no assistant in the studio. It was Tony. He would set up everything, do the headphones, everything. I was with him. I set everything up. We got the track done. We started doing vocals, and Tony goes, "Eddie, I'm going to go get a sandwich. Take over, do the vocals." And I had the hiccups because I was so nervous. I couldn't get, and all the cats in the band were like giving me all these solutions for getting rid of the hiccups. You know, drinking a glass of water upside down.
Right, holding your breath.
Holding your breath and breathing into a brown paper bag, taking a spoonful of sugar and putting it on your tongue. And I had the hiccups, and it lasted for like an hour, I swear. So Tony leaves, and I say, "Okay, I'll do the vocal, sure." Do the vocal, and I don't remember the singers. I don't remember anything about the session. I don't know what song it was. I just remember it was Cool in the Gang. And Tony split, and he said, "Okay, give me another track. I want to do another vocal." And I'm like, but I knew there was a patch bay, kind of knew the basics about it. I figured it out. I think there was an Ampex MM1000 there at the time as well. Or was it an MCI? No, it was probably an MM1000.
The big tall guy.
Yeah, the same one that was at Camello's.
Yeah.
It was an MM1000 16 track. And then they wanted to do horns. And Tony's nowhere to be found. So I just got it together, cool and calm, and got it together.
Set up mics and everything?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. It's pretty good for trial by fire, man.
Yeah, I figured it out, and then it was like 2 hours. I swear. Well, it might have been 2 hours. I mean, Johnny Ramone always says it was 8 hours for that first chord for Rock and Roll High School. That was an hour and a half. So when I say 2 hours, it might have been an hour. But it was, I think.
But it felt like a hell of a lot longer, no doubt.
A long time.
Sure.
And we're starting to do something. Everybody's in the control room. They want me to do a rough mix. Okay. Let's start listening, putting all the stuff up. And all of a sudden, Bob Walters walks in. He's saying hello to everybody. He was very cordial with all the clientele of Media Sound. Mm-hmm. He knew all the guys in the band. Mm-hmm. And he looks over at me and goes, "Who are you? Where's Tony?" And I'm there. Tony went, like, I swear to God, as if on cue. Tony walks through the door. "Hi, everybody. I'm back. Eddie, here's your sandwich." I got a liverwurst on rye, I'm sure. And Bob goes, "Who's this? Who's this?" And Tony's like, "This is Eddie. He's a great engineer." And he's like building me up. I never did anything like this in my life. And that was my trial by fire. I went, he threw me in the pool, and I swam. Mm-hmm. Even though I really kind of had the basics of the stroke, but it worked.
Yeah,
and it was cool. Mm-hmm. So that was.
And the tracks came out okay. I mean, you didn't screw anything up or anything, right?
No, everything was good. And that evening was a buzzy feet in session because Bob Walters only wanted to book 3-hour sessions at Media Sound. There was no lockouts, no such thing as lockouts.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
The reason I left Power Station, actually.
So all of a sudden, you find yourself as an engineer.
I found myself as an engineer. And
did that turn to a gig? Or
2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, Tony Bon Jovi is no longer in the picture. Something went down. I don't know what it is. Tony Camello is not with us anymore, so I never confronted him with the question, what happened to you and Tony? The Tony and the Tony. And I haven't seen Tony Bon Jovi in 30 years, 35 years. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, last time I saw Tony was at A&M Studios in like 91. Uh-huh. He popped into a session, told me the vocals weren't loud enough.
It sounds like Tony.
Yeah.
It sounds like shit, man.
Pretty funny.
Yep. So did you get hired, or I mean?
I got hired. I was collecting unemployment at the time because I had gotten fired, but I was still able to collect unemployment. Uh-huh. And I was still living in my parents' basement. And this went on for months until unemployment ran out. And during this interim of the summer of '72, I helped build a place. Helped wire the patch bay. I went into New York and got the last existing Teletronics LA2A in existence for $600. I went into I guess it was Martin Audio. I went to purchase this LA2A, and I remember the guy saying, "This is the last one. They're not making this anymore. They're coming out with the LA3." And I'm there. Okay, we'll take it.
Nice.
And we had a Pultec in there left over from the earlier Venture Sound. And that was all we had. You had one Pultec and one LA2A as outboard gear.
Well, that's all most people had it in those days. You had EQs and you had dynamics, and that was it.
There was EQ. I mean, there was no panning on the console. It was just dead center, left or right. Mm-hmm. Once in a while, if I wanted to pan something, I would put it up. I would do a split and put it on 2 faders, and make it go like this. I remember I did that with one of the Gladys Knight songs.
Hey, you had faders.
Yeah.
You had graduated from Bakelite knobs to faders. That's that's progress right there.
Yeah, we were good.
All right, so I want to take you a little bit forward in the trajectory here, because there's this at least more so then than now, there was this fine line between engineer producer, and you being an artist yourself. At what point did it become apparent to you that you were part of the creative process as opposed to just twiddling knobs?
I was always part of the creative process, because when I was in my bands in high school, I was the guy who would, I had a tape recorder, a little 45 player. I figured out how to put the alligator clips on a speaker and record it direct into the tape recorder. And I would record a single. What do we want to do? We got to get out of this place by the Animals. Okay? So I would put on the tape recorder, and I would figure out the bass, the guitar, all the parts, and write down the lyrics, and I would show it to other guys in the band. That was my gig. I loved doing it.
So yeah, you really were hands-on from day one.
In high school, every song we ever did, I taught everybody else in the band what to play. If they're playing something not quite right, I would say, you're not playing that quite right. Or maybe you should play it this way. Try this. It's too fast. That's not the right note. That's not the right chord. And that graduated into production somehow. It's osmosis, I'm telling you. It just gradually just happened.
And that's the thing, because especially back then, there was more of a gray area. There was more of a blurring of the roles in that sense. But also, I think, you obviously realized early on the role of that creative partner, right? I mean, the producer is, even if you're in the band, the producer has a different role in that sense.
But it came naturally to me. I didn't have to think about it. I didn't say, I'm going to be a producer.
Right.
I didn't say, I'm going to become an engineer either. It just
kind of did it as part of the whole thing.
And again, I'll go back to being very lucky, being at the right place at the right time, many times. I was at the right place at the right time, getting those fucking bicycles and bumping into Mike Bonagura on that day.
Right.
When he said, hey, a friend of my dad's is building a recording studio. And I'm there, my eyes lit up. And I'm like, yeah, baby, let's go.
Yeah. But, part of that is also, I mean, what do they say? 90% of success is showing up, right? I mean, you made a point to be there. You made a point to surround yourself with all the shit you love.
And I was there for the first year. We were building that place.
You slept there and everything, right?
Basically, I mean, there was the only place to eat around there was McDonald's. I ate McDonald's twice a day. I was married with a kid at home. I never went home.
No.
I'm sure that's what broke up the relationship. 90% of what broke up the relationship.
Sure.
And I was fucking loving it. It was like, this is a dream come true. But I didn't even think about it. I just did it. And here we are doing this. And I was, building the studio. I put the floor down. I got my father was handy at carpentry work and taught me some stuff. We built a drum booth, built baffles, wired the headphone system, stained put the window in. I started getting paid from Camelo. Unemployment stopped. Said, Tony, I need to make some money. I got to live. I got to live over here. You can't just give me $10 and say go to McDonald's. And I don't feel that I was taken advantage of either. It was great, great college. It was great.
Absolutely,
great learning experience. Yeah. And then they didn't take out taxes or something, and then I got the IRS got after me because I didn't fill out any forms. I didn't know.
Ruh-roh.
I really didn't. And just.
So yeah, tell me about Midnight
Train. Yeah. So, boy, we did that. We tracked that 3 different times. Tony had a way of doing things. Tony Camelo. And we would have these massive, giant sessions with all the cats down from New York. Drummers were Steve Gadd, Alan Schwartzberg, the bass player Bob Babbitt, Will Lee came down, the horn section, the Brecker Brothers, Nico Minardo, string players, Tony Poskin, guitar players, Bobby Mann, Jeff Mironoff, Jerry Friedman, Barry Miles played keyboards. And he would just do these cookie cutter sessions, be all the same. And we did a bunch of records, for Cecil Holmes, or a whole bunch of records that you've never heard of. But they were fun to do, always fun to do. We got the session from Midnight Train, and it was still called Midnight Plane to Houston, the sheet music we got, but she wanted to. Sissy Houston changed it to Midnight Train in Georgia. I was always under the impression that Gladys changed it to Midnight Train, but then there was a feature in Goldbine magazine quite a while ago, and there was an interview with Jim Weatherly, and it was Sissy Houston who actually changed the title from Midnight Plane to Midnight Train.
Works better.
Yeah.
Midnight
Plane to Houston. It was about Farrah Fawcett leaving Lee Majors. You know that?
I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah. It's
wow.
Jim Weatherly and Farrah Fawcett were good friends, and she called. There was a phone conversation. She's, I'm taking a Midnight Plane to Houston. I'm breaking up with Lee, and he said, good idea for a song. He wrote it in half hour.
I love it.
Boom. Anyway, so we cut it 3 times. 2 times with the big cookie cutter session. Gladys didn't like the track. And at that time, we were sending. I remember sending Reel to Reels to her. And she didn't like the first 2 we cut, and then she says, I want it to sound more like a Al Green vibe.
Okay. Right. That groove. Yeah.
So it was a Sunday. It was the summer. I don't remember what month, but Jeff Mironoff was a guitar player. He was sunburned to shit. He had been down the beach, down the shore, as they say in Jersey.
Yeah.
He was down the shore, and Jeff came in. Babbitt played bass. Andrew Smith, who was Barry Gordy's nephew, played drums. We tracked it just with a 4-piece. Camelo played piano. Did it like one or two takes. You know, da 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 da. Really cool song. Cool groove.
Oh yeah, stands the test
The
of time.
next day, we did the horns and the strings, and sent it to Gladys, and she loved it. And then we went to Detroit and did the vocals. My first time on a plane. I'd never
Wow.
been on a plane before. And that's another thing. You know, I went to a studio. I had never, just except for the time with Tony at Media Sound. I went to some studio. Oh, I don't remember the name of it. Anyway.
Somewhere in
You
Detroit.
know, and Gladys is like, okay, I want to sing now. Okay. Bites her lemon. And, you know, I just guessed. I put it through an LA2A. It was a 67 probably, or an 87 on vocal. And she just did it in one take.
Wow.
Boom. Went back and mixed it. The first time I mixed it, I didn't know about phase cancellation or any of that business. And went to Bell Sound to cut it for Buddha. And there's a tom-tom going doom, doom, doom. And it was creating this oscillation with certain bass notes, and the cutter couldn't handle it.
Oh.
He couldn't cut it, so I had to remix it again.
Oh
And I
man.
put that tom-tom in the middle. Can't even hear it in the mix, I don't think. Anyway, so, okay, go, shoot, boom, get a couple singles, get some promotional singles. And it's October of 73. I guess it was 74, actually. And I'm washing dishes, looking out the window. I had WABC on because that's where they were playing it, and it came on the radio. And that was a moment that was like the greatest moment.
Sure.
It really was a great moment.
Shit got real.
Yeah, it was like, you know, oh my God, a record that I worked on is on the radio, on WABC, the radio station of my youth.
Right.
It was fantastic. And then it went to #1, boom. And then it won a Grammy, boom. Tony loved it, and the Pips loved it, Gladys loved it. A lot of fun.
Now let me take you from that to, there's a whole scene happening in New York at this point, right?
Yes.
And you've just done a record, okay, granted, successful record, you're happy about that and everything.
Thrilled.
Absolutely, and as well you should be. I'm sure there was a little bit of a gap between that and the Ramones, but creatively speaking, that's like almost opposite worlds.
Well, I'm a garage band guy.
So then that's what I want to understand there. So in a certain sense, the Gladys Knight record was out of your comfort zone to a certain extent, was it?
No. I dug R&B. You know, I mean, when I was a kid, we used to play all the Motown stuff.
Sure,
We used to-
sure.
I remember playing Hitchhike by Marvin Gaye. I remember doing Please Please Me by James Brown.
So again, all of this was basically just music for you,
It's just
right?
music.
Yeah.
And
okay,
going back
cool,
to those, everything
cool.
was on the radio was, you know,
Fair game.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, I play that in Psychotic Reaction and, you know,
Yeah.
and Satisfaction and, you know.
And that's what I love about that is that, there were no arbitrary lines of, I'm an R&B guy or I'm a rock guy
Exactly.
or,
Oh, I kind of still feel the same way.
yeah.
Although I do not work in, the genre, I do deeply appreciate hip hop and rap, but I don't get into that genre at all. I've done some like metal rap stuff, like I've done several Biohazard records.
Right.
Which was, because there
Which is kind of a hybrid.
It's
yeah,
a hybrid, yeah.
uh-huh.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
the word I was looking for. But I'm not an intellectual. Those things don't come to my mind very easily.
Yeah, I'll give you all the Scrabble words as we move along here. No problem.
Scrabble's good.
Yeah.
I enjoy playing Scrabble.
Yeah.
So, but again, I left Tony Camello's to go to the Studio Morin Heights in Canada, where the first A-series Trident was located. They purchased and they installed the A-series.
So how do you go from New York to Canada? What, just gig came up and you decided to take it?
Here's what Tony hasn't come in yet. Alan Schwartzberg, the drummer that played a lot of the Camello dates, really, for some reason, so many people dig the snare sound on Midnight Train in Georgia. I didn't know, let's put it this way, didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I don't know what microphone I used. I don't know what the snare was. I don't know how I did it.
Somehow or another it worked.
It was probably on 2 tracks. I probably had the kick on 1 track and the rest of the drums on another track. Or maybe it was a kick, snare, and then the drums on the 3rd track. I didn't know. Anyway, Alan Schwartzberg was a fan. October of 75. Go to the AES show in New York. one of the early AES shows I went to. Picked up a copy of DB magazine, and
wow.
I knew I was a fan of Trident Studios. You know, the Bowie stuff, Queen.
Sure.
Beatles did, Hey Jude there.
Yeah.
Carly Simon, No Secrets record was done there. All the Harry Nilsson stuff. Nielsen Schmielsen, the Richard Perry produced stuff.
Yes.
That stuff sounded amazing to me.
Yeah.
And
those consoles were already legendary even at that point. Yeah.
And I had there was a fold out in like REP or DB magazine with a fold out of the Trident console. I had it in the shop at Camello's. I had it tacked up there. I saw an ad in the back of DB magazine for Engineer One at Le Studio Morin Heights. And I knew that they had an A series up there. And I was a little tired of Tony. I love Tony, R.I.P. And it was a great opportunity. But his cookie cutter method of making records was, I was a rocker. I had done some friends that had rock, we did this band called Another Pretty Face, which was an amazing record. It was available on Spotify for a while. It disappeared. I don't know what happened. I might have a CD downstairs for you. It's a really cool record.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Done in like 73. They were a big popular band. It never got signed. I had the master for years. They put it out like maybe 10 or 12 years ago on a CD. But I was fed up with the cookie cutter, and I thought they have tried an A series up there. I'm gonna go. I called up. I remember the phone number, 514-226-2419.
All right.
Yeah, look at me. I don't use that for my.
Can't remember where I left my keys, but I remember a phone number from 40 years ago.
It's not my password. And I flew up the next day. I met with Andre Perry and Yale Brandis. They're a couple. They're still together. Andre's still kicking, and Yale's a great gal. And I went up there with a stack of records under my arm, played a couple things for him, and Andre Perry's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna hire you. Got that New York thing, eh? Yeah, you're on. When can you start?" And I think I started like a week later.
Wow.
Maybe 2 weeks.
Just went back, got your stuff, and came up there.
Basically, yeah. They gave me a visa. I had already had a passport. I had gone to Europe the summer of '75 with my girlfriend at the time and her parents. That's a great story too. Maybe I'll write a book someday.
Yeah, you should.
Maybe.
We'll talk about that.
Okay. And got the gig, and they gave me a going away party. Tony was mad at me for leaving.
Of course.
But I just needed to move on. So I went up there and started working with a bunch of French-Canadian artists. It was, A range. And they had a great outboard. Andre would have everything up to the minute, If, he had the first harmonizer in Canada, I'm sure of it.
Ooh.
Yeah, 910.
So essentially, the other thing about going up there was that you got to basically do your own thing, right? You were no longer basically under Tony's wing.
No, I became under Andre's wing.
Was that better, worse, different?
No, I cried. I sat down the first night there, I remember, and it was snowing. It was all glass, and I had worked with a Canadian artist called Robert Chalabois. He had done this beautiful piano piece, and I had tears come to my eyes. I was just so happy to be up there. It was fantastic. You get those French cigarettes like Gaulois, hey.
All right, yeah. Sit there and drink an espresso.
Yeah, drink some espresso. The first thing Andre showed me when I moved in, Ed, he used to call me Ed. He couldn't pronounce Ed. Ed, I'm going to teach you how to make the espresso. It's very important.
Ah, of course.
You have to do the steam like this. Watch, listen to it. Listen to the steam.
Become one with the steam.
Yeah, this big fucking cappuccino machine. And this was when the studio was early. It was just the original building. And I started working with a bunch of French-Canadian bands, French-Canadian artists. Pilot came up there, did the Morin Heights record with Roy Thomas Baker, which was a real eye-opener for me.
Sure.
Because I've been basically learning by myself. And I recall when Pilot, I was very excited. It was right when A Night at the Opera had just been released. And Roy comes in, a couple things. First of all, he has a 1/4-inch copy of Night at the Opera, puts on fucking Bohemian Rhapsody on these monitors. That sounded amazing. That Nick Ladona, my co-engineer up there, he was the chief engineer. Nick, he designed the place with Andre. Nick, R.I.P. Nick. and played that. And I'm like, my mind is blown now. Yes, it is. It was insane. It sounded
Sure.
amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And then Nick and I had set up the band's equipment. Gear got there before the band got there, and there was a drum booth in the back of the studio, and we set up the drums in there. And Baker comes in, and what are those drums doing in that tiny little room back there? Put them in the studio here, burn all this wood, so we get some of this lovely ambience. Opened my mind up to, and then he was miking shit from down the hall. Guitar amps in the back, guitar amps. You know, I never did that stuff. It opened, you know, it just was a realization. It was an epiphany.
Yeah.
An epiphany.
An epiphany, definitely.
You know, at Camello's, I was putting fucking moving blankets over guitar amps, and I try to isolate everything. And RTB's like, no, that's all wrong. Let this run every sound.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and then, you know, then bouncing as we go along. He would do a vocal and do a double track and then bounce that.
Yeah, just
you know,
committing to
one
stuff.
track, committing it, all compressed as shit.
Well, I recently just heard, it's been going around recently, the multi-tracks of Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, I've had that for a couple of
Yeah,
for years.
And,
it's
you know,
great.
I mean, it's amazing to listen to that because you can tell what some of the moves were. Okay, let's commit these vocals here. Let's do, you know, and then a guitar all of a sudden comes up on a vocal track and stuff.
It's
you know,
amazing.
it's 24 track.
It's crazy. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, and they did it in pieces. They did it, edited it, each section together.
But okay, so that's actually a good segue to something that I wanted to get into with you, because you have a certain production style of your own, like we all do, right? I mean, whoever we are, right?
Okay.
But what I always found interesting was you've done a lot of different things, and all of your stuff sounds different. You adhere to a similar ethos that I believe in, I support myself, which is do no harm. Basically, you know, you want to be. I appreciate producers like Roy Thomas Baker who have their own sound. Mutt Lange is another one.
Yep.
You know, Jeff Lynne.
Yeah.
You know, but then there are other producers who really leave almost no fingerprint of their own, and it's all about the artist. And you hew more towards that.
I believe I do.
Yeah.
I try to bring the artist's vision to fruition. That's a big tagline of mine.
And that's great, and that's what I've always really loved about the art of production. To me, is the idea of we really want to get into the artist's head, and you really do. You have to establish such a relationship with them, such a trust with them, in order to get that out of them. But at the point that you do that, you really have something really genuine, I think, you know, and that to me is. I've always felt like that's the ethos of the producer, but there are so many different types of producers and productions and everything. Having then grown up, or not grown up, but come up working behind somebody like Roy Thomas Baker.
Big influence.
I can imagine it was, and yet at the same time, you obviously went a different direction in terms of your personal involvement with the creative process.
I started stacking vocals, I'll tell you that much.
Did you?
Oh,
Did
yeah.
you? Uh-huh.
Yeah. And also, while up at the studio more nights, the Bee Gees came up there.
Oh, wow.
To work on the Saturday Night Fever stuff. Yeah, they came up there to do overdubs on the Children of the World record, which a lot of that stuff ended up on the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack.
Right.
I remember in particular, You Should Be Dancing.
Uh-huh.
And the way they did backing vocals was something that I kind of went with as well. They would all three of them would get on one microphone and sing a part. Mm-hmm. And they would do one. They wouldn't do different parts. They'd do like the low part of the harmony, or the middle.
Oh, they'd all do the same note.
They'd all do the same note.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they'd all do it, and they'd all be in sync together. And then they double track that, and then they triple track that. Then they bounce that all to one. Then they do another.
Oh, wow.
Another stack.
No
of
wonder
vocals
it's so
like
thick.
That.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's interesting too, because you know a lot of times they say like siblings. They have that
they had
tightness
that
in the vocal,
yes,
man.
Exactly.
You know?
They sounded amazing.
I'll bet.
I mean, I was just privy to be there. Nick, it was Albie Gluten and Carl Richardson who were producing the record. Carl Richardson is an engineer from that studio in Florida.
Oh, that one. Criterion.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's wrong with me? I'm getting old. I don't remember things. My ears are weak. My eyes can't see. Oh, dear. Criterion. He was an engineer on Criterion. Got into this thing with the Bee Gees. I guess Arif did the record before that. But then they decided to work with Albie Gluten and Carl. And so Nick was actually the assistant on the date. I wasn't, but I would hang out. I would be like cleaning weed with Barry. and rolling joints.
Well, at least you were being constructive.
With Barry
you know?
Gibb when they were doing guitar overdubs and some keyboard overdubs. And I got to be pretty tight. Not that we didn't keep in touch at all, but we would hang out, and he was into metaphysical shit. And like this, he had a book called Seth Speaks.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had a book, The Interrupted Journey, about the early UFO abduction.
Yes.
Betty and Barney
Yes.
Hill. And I'm way into that shit. And
well, I'm getting a mental image here. Okay, you're smoking weed. You're talking about okay.
Yeah. It was fun. It was cool. It was,
of course.
It was just very casual.
Yeah.
Just,
1970s,
smoking
man.
weed like it was a cigarette.
Yeah.
It was no big deal.
Yeah.
Didn't really get stoned, actually. It was just like, it was cool. It was cool hanging out with one of the fucking Bee Gees.
Yeah.
I love those Bee Gees records.
Yeah.
I played some of those songs in my bands.
And the pre-Saturday Night Fever stuff was really great. I mean,
it was great. I loved the.
What did I just hear the other
New
day?
York coal mine disaster.
Every Christian lion-hearted man will show you.
What a great record that
Epic,
is.
man. Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Really.
Fucking love it.
But that to me is really kind of, it's interesting that you took that to heart of leaving the artist's vision intact, because then the people you hooked up with, I'm talking Ramones, Talking Heads, these are artists who already had a pretty strong identity.
I mean,
you didn't fuck with it at all. It's like, what do you do, right?
That's a reason, not to diss Tony Bon Jovi, I owe him my career, really, but, that's the reason that David Byrne, while we're doing Talking Heads 77, didn't want Tony in the room when doing vocals. We started doing vocals, and all of a sudden Tony Bon Jovi's telling David Byrne how to sing. You have to do it this way. No, that doesn't sound good. You got to do it different. And Byrne is like, really? And David took me aside and says, I can't have Tony in the room when we're doing vocals. It just doesn't work. I feel uncomfortable. So we kicked him out. Tony, the producer, got kicked out of the studio.
Funny.
Sorry, Tony, but that's the way it was.
So we came up in a different era in terms of being able to learn on the job. In your case, very much learning on the job.
Yeah.
Yeah,
man.
And it's a different world now, but it also, I think the role of the producer, I don't know if it's been redefined, but I think it's become more permeable.
I'm still doing the same thing.
But I know you've watched other people. I know you've seen other people's work, heard other people's work. We all have.
Yeah.
How do you think things have changed, and how do you think they're still the same?
Oh boy. I can't get into all the philosophy of what's changed, but as soon as Napster came around, the whole entire business changed.
Of course.
We all know that.
Yes.
It's all completely different. We don't sell records anymore. We sell, everybody's streaming.
Yeah.
That's
we sell bits.
Yeah, selling bits. The majority of the royalties that I get are from streaming and licensing. That's it. But I didn't get into music for streaming and licensing, or for that matter, to make money. I just started doing it because I loved doing it.
Right.
And I think that has to be there for me. And any type of advice I would have for a young person getting in is you follow your dreams, follow your bliss, listen to, Mr. Joseph Campbell, follow your bliss. And, love what you do, no matter what it is. If it's the music business or engineering, if you went to Harvard Business School, and you want to get into business, then go for that. That was definitely not my thing. I just loved music. Music was always around in my life. From when I was a little weeber until now.
And you had the serendipity of having the right things happen to you at the right time, as you say.
The right place at the right time.
Yeah.
A little bit of talent and a lot of luck. Seriously. I mean, I just turn knobs and give opinions. That's what I do. Don't argue with me.
No. I wouldn't argue with you about that, but I think that there's a little, to go back to what we started this conversation with, what you brought to the table while you were turning those knobs was an understanding of the art, the creative process.
It's like painting.
And for example, all right, you get into the role of producer, right? To be a good producer, and good is a subjective term, all right, but to achieve that certain relationship with the artist, that certain trust that you need, you have to tread this fine line, because on the one hand, you got to be the fifth Beatle. You got to be a member of the band in that sense. At the same time, you have to be driving things, right? There's that balance there of like, I'm in the band, but I'm helping you to make the decisions, and therefore at a certain point, I don't want to say it's an authority, but there is a decision-making process where they're going to look at you at some point or another and say, okay, what do you think? Right? I mean...
Yeah. And I give opinions all the time.
Sure.
And that's exactly what they are opinions. And I do try to become a member of the band. On every record that I've done, I'll pick up a guitar.
Sure.
And I'm playing along. I'll play a little keyboard. I play drums.
Right. Right.
I'm terrible at all of them, but I can play a little bit, seriously. And, it's their band. So I'll make a suggestion, and it's up to them. Sometimes it'll be, it's just an idea that I come up with. But I'll always express my ideas. And I always have, since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Figuring out those records for all those numerous garage bands that I was in.
Sure.
To, changing an arrangement on Cult of Personality. Because I think it's a good idea. Maybe the band will like it, maybe they won't like it. I'm sure there's just as many ideas that I've come up with that bands have said, nah, that's shit. And,
Yeah, and ideas are cheap. That's the thing. Is if this is your last great idea, you might as well give it up now, right? But at the same time, I think there is that balance, and I think there is that psychology of being able to maintain that position of like, I am I am another member of the band for the duration of this project, whatever. At the same time, I'm bringing to you an outside perspective, and therefore that's valuable.
Yeah,
and, there's a balance there.
I don't come out and say that.
No, of course not. Of course not. You never would.
I think it's kind of taken for granted. I'm just like I'm a member.
Yeah,
and that's how I've been, especially with all the rock bands that I've worked with. Every one of them, it's I'm a member. I feel that I'm a member. I'm even an honorary member. It says right up there of the Long Riders. I'm the fifth member.
All right.
I contribute to that stuff. I've never had to give any type of vocal guidance to anybody because they're all artists. You don't tell Joey Ramone how to sing. You don't tell Gladys Knight how to sing.
Sure.
Corey Glover from Living Colour. He's an amazing singer. Why would I change that?
Right.
Why? Pat Denizio. What a great singer.
Yeah.
Joey, going back to Joey, double tracked his stuff perfectly. It was like spot on. People, are using, this vocal line stuff to, get double tracks right. I mean, Joey, 40 years ago, over 40 years ago, 45 years ago, when I started working with him and leave home, he would double track it like nobody's business.
And just get it right both times.
Take.
Yeah.
They're not doing 20 tracks of vocals and trying to find the best thing, trying to comp this shit,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't talk to Ron Fair all that much, but, I've known Ron for a long time. And I remember Ron being on the phone when I was still living in Sherman Oaks. And he said, hey, how's it going, Bob? We're talking about something. He says, oh, yeah, I'm just trying to get, 24 tracks of, comping 24 tracks of Christina Aguilera vocals. And I've been doing it for 3 days. And I'm just, I can't find the right spot, whatever. Anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a great singer.
Absolutely.
So
It's like, why?
Why?
Yeah.
Midnight, going back again to something I've done, not to pat myself on the back because I didn't do the vocal, but Gladys Knight did that fucking Midnight Train to Georgia vocal in one take.
Sure.
It's one take. We punched in one line like a month later.
Yeah.
Went to Bell Sound in New York like maybe 3 weeks later. She said, I don't like that one line. I got to go. I don't like that second one. Let me do that. Just went back in and punched into one thing. God no, I wouldn't be able to tell which note it was, but she punched in one little thing. It's
but
all
for
feel.
The most part, it's all
about
feel.
And that's what I love. Listen to those Beatles records.
Yeah.
Great records. Great
exactly.
feel.
It's not about assembling a performance. It's about getting that performance in the moment.
And I'm just as guilty these days about, assembling. I do, multi-vocal takes. And I don't do many. I maybe do 5 or 6 tracks. And then, in Pro Tools, I use a playlist. And boom. It's...
Yeah.
And I've been comping for a long, long time.
Yeah.
It's easier in Pro Tools. But
so, has the change in technology changed the way you work?
Not really.
Significantly?
No.
I mean, obviously comping and stuff, but being able to undo, edit.
I've been editing tape since Tony Bon Jovi told me how to edit 2-inch.
Right. Well, that's what I'm asking is now that you can do it here.
Yeah.
Does it change Because what I've always been fascinated by is the idea of people who came up with 24 tracks still try to keep the track count down. Whereas sometimes I'll hear about people getting a mix that's like 150 tracks of stuff.
Nope, not me.
Yeah.
Nuh-uh. Nuh-uh. Although I was working with a certain punk band, I won't mention the name, and the engineer sent me the session. I noticed when I was downloading, it was quite big, like 30 gigabytes. And it was like, it was a 48K 24-bit session. It wasn't like,
Yeah.
192 or anything. And there were 392 tracks on there. For what? I'm not even going to get into it, but no, it's not necessary. It is not necessary.
Just because you got them,
And honestly, if I'm cutting stuff here, I only have 16 inputs.
Yeah.
I'm still old school. Just mic the drums. I mic them separately. Two on the kick usually, and then I'll use room mics. I have a pair of room mics, maybe an old RCA that I have, 90. P90 a ribbon mic that I got at a garage. I found it at a garage sale in Sherman Oaks in the 80s for $5. It's an RCA ribbon mic.
Oh my God!
I had AEA re-ribbon it for me.
I'll bet. Yeah, Wes does a great job with those. Yeah,
it sounds great. But I keep a low track count. And try to get as much as I can on the backing track. And I'm still brutal at getting things right. If something doesn't feel right, we're doing guitar overdubs. When we're doing a guitar solo, I'll comp it.
Right.
And I've been doing that for years. When we did the solo on Cult of Personality with Vernon Living Color, he did one take. And he said, we're all like, that sounds good. Let's try some more. So we went and ended up doing like, we're on a slave reel. I know that's politically incorrect these days, but that's what we call them. A reel, B reel, master, slave. And we were so we had plenty of tracks open, and he did like 6 tracks of the solo. And of course, we went back to that original one.
That's the thing.
It was the best one.
Yeah.
It was like off the fly. It was just like vibe. It was off the top of his head, and you start thinking about it.
Yeah.
And the thing with me is with getting a performance is not having the artist think about it. Don't bog down. Don't bog down. Don't be a driver.
Get the spontaneity of the moment.
Yeah,
right?
get the moment, even with vocals.
Yeah.
That's why I like doing comps with vocals. Unless sometimes you get it. People get it. Joey Ramone would be kind of a one take kind of guy. David Byrne.
Yeah.
There's
that I can imagine.
I only worked on the first record, so I can only talk about that. I don't know what they got into later on. It might have got a little deeper. Not too much deeper though. They made a bunch of great records.
Yeah, and there's still a spontaneity to all of those records.
Yeah. But kids today, get your spontaneity going. Just get the feel. Don't worry about the freaking click track.
Yeah.
Don't worry about doing it in the grid. Although I'm guilty of that as well, kind of.
We all are, and then especially now when you can get the grid to match the performance.
Yeah. I mean, with the Tearaways record that I recently did. We did it over COVID. It took us over 2 years. And Clem, my old buddy Clem Burke, plays drums in the band.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And they're from Santa Barbara. Great guys. They're old geezers. They're old geezers, not quite as old as us, but they're up there. They all have very successful careers on their own, and in pharmaceutical and real estate. But they wrote some good songs. And, Clem played drums on it, and sometimes we used a click, sometimes we wouldn't. The same with the Empty Hearts, because Clem plays in the Empty Hearts as well. And Clem's I love Clem. I've known him since the CBGB's days.
Wow.
Way back. 76, 77 I met him. And, sometimes we'll use the click, sometimes we won't. Clem likes to use the click, and it's handy. Sometimes it's handy.
Yeah.
When it's handy for if you got a big background vocal chorus, you want to fly them in for each chorus. If you're doing that kind of thing, it really works well. Roy Thomas Baker with all those Cars vocals, that shit's all flown in.
That doesn't surprise me though, because that was Roy's style.
He would stack all those vocals. And you put them in AMS, those AMS samplers.
Yes,
and he had he had like a 45-second AMS at the time.
Oh yeah,
it was his own personal one.
It's a fortune worth of memory right there. Yeah.
Well, it used to be a fortune of memory. Yeah, I remember getting my first hard drive. It was $600 for like 30 gigabytes.
Oh yeah, and it was the size of a shoebox too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so one more question for you.
Yeah, man, hit me.
Any project that you have done that you feel that you really think was fantastic and was underappreciated?
Something Happens, band called Something Happens, Irish band.
Uh-huh.
Really great record I did with them. It was a lot of fun. Good guys, great songs. Zip.
Mm-hmm.
Zip. Nada. It's sold in Ireland.
Uh-huh.
I have a gold record for the Irish sales, but I think
All right.
the thing's like 5,000 copies in Ireland or something.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
I don't know how
Everybody and their mother bought one,
I'm
yeah.
joking.
Mm-hmm.
There's another band called the Tea Party, a Canadian band, which had
Sure,
great
I remember
success,
them.
Great success in Canada and Australia.
Yeah.
Really cool record, very diversified, a lot of kind of Zeppelin sounding,
Yes.
but a lot of like Middle Eastern influence. A really cool record. And my friend Tim Summer, when he was working for Atlantic, signed him here. I mean, Zip, nothing. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. I mean, you go through a list of the records that I've done, and 95% of them you never heard of.
And that's the thing,
That
a lot of,
happens.
and you sign in and you sign on for,
Yeah, I'm lucky I'm still here.
Yeah,
And people
yeah.
still trust me and want to work with me.
Well, and that was going to be my closing question to you is what's coming up for you? What are you still doing?
New HooDoo Gurus record's coming out this Friday.
All right.
The 11th. It's a double album, double vinyl. Mm-hmm. I think there's 16 songs on the vinyl. They did it over COVID. They're Australian, so obviously they recorded it there.
Sure.
And with the lockdown, but I mixed it for them. Mixed it here. Mixed it with headphones, basically. I like mixing on headphones. I've been using these Sennheiser HD 600s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Those are
they're
cool.
really, really nice. And using Zoom and audio movers.
Yes.
The high resolution streaming system.
Yeah. Mark Needham was telling me he's using that as well.
Yeah,
Sounds really
it was
cool.
great. I mean, Dave Faulkner from the Hoodoos was getting very frustrated with going back and forth. He's very particular about. This is the fourth record I've done with them, and Dave was very particular, and he knows his frequencies. He knows what to talk about. He knows about reverb and delays and EQ, what frequencies to go for. Mm-hmm. Give me some of that hurting frequency, Ed. Come on, give me that 1K. The one that hurts, make it hurt. Yeah, and we would sit here and work on it. So I would get it to him, and then he'd listen to it, and then the next day we'd there's a big time difference between here and Australia.
Sure, of course.
So we would just get together, use my laptop for the Zoom, and I'd stream from my Pro Tools rig. And with audio movers, it sounds quite good. It's pretty reasonable. It sounds, it's hot. You can go to 96K. Sounds good. There's not much latency at all. You do have to remember to mute during playback.
Ah, yes.
Yes, because even with the headphones, you have a microphone on. There's a little bit of bleed, and you'll get a little that delay. You're hearing.
Yeah.
So we had to mute, but it was really cool.
But you managed to adapt to the whole vibe of working in two different places. Pretty easily, right?
And I enjoy working at home in my boxer shorts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's great. It's fine. I think I've adapted very well. Although for the Tearaways, we did all the tracking at Village up in LA. And that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I love Jeff.
There is no bad room at Village.
No. And Jeff and Tina are great.
Wonderful people.
Love them.
Yeah.
I've known Jeff since the '80s. So we tracked up there, and we did most of the work down there. We did get some vocals here. Wanted to use their gear. They have
of course.
47s, some good LA2s.
Yeah.
And I always, ever since day one, LA2 and a decent vocal mic is that's all. That's all. No EQ. I never use EQ on vocals.
I'm trying to find a nice way to sort of wrap this all up with a little bow here. Any parting words?
Trust your instinct.
I like that. Do that again without me talking.
That's one of my catchphrases. Trust your instinct.
Seems to have served you well.
Osmosis. It's all about osmosis and being at the right place at the right time.
Yep. Ed Stasium, thank you for being my guest.
My pleasure.
Hey, I'm Daniel Keller. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join us each week for Insights in Sound.